Let me ask you something. Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling like you just got played, but you can't quite figure out how? You knew something was off. You felt it in your gut, but somehow you ended up apologizing, doubting yourself, or letting it go when you shouldn't have. Here's the truth most people never realize. Liars don't just deceive with statements. They manipulate with questions. And if you don't know what to listen for, you'll hand them control without even knowing it happened. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the 5 questions liars ask to twist your reality, plant doubt, and make you question your own sanity. These aren't random questions. They're calculated. They're designed to exploit your emotions, your loyalty, and your desire to avoid conflict. And the worst part, they work. They work on good people, smart people, aware people, because most of us were never taught to recognize manipulation tactics disguised as innocent conversation. But that ends today. We're going to break down each question, show you exactly how it works, and give you the Stoic wisdom to see through it and respond with unshakable calm. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus. These men understood deception at a level most people never will. They knew that emotional control and mental clarity aren't just nice ideas, they're survival tools. And by the end of this video, you're going to have those tools. You're going to walk away knowing how to spot gaslighting before it takes root, how to hold your ground without losing your peace, and how to protect your truth in a world full of lies. But here's the deal. You've got to stay until the end, because each question builds on the last. And if you miss one, you'll miss the pattern. And the pattern is everything. This isn't just information. This is transformation. This is you becoming the kind of person liars can't touch. Not because you're paranoid, but because you're aware. Because you've developed the self-awareness and inner strength the Stoics spent their lives teaching. And hey, if this resonates with you, if you want more content that sharpens your mind and protects your peace, do me a favor. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps us keep making videos like this, and it tells me you're serious about becoming unshakable. Now let's dive in, because the first question is one you've probably heard 100 times, and you might not even realize how dangerous it is.
The hidden power behind manipulative questions. Why liars use questions as weapons.
You've probably felt it before. That uncomfortable twist in your stomach when someone asks you a question that doesn't sit right. It's not what they're asking exactly, but how they're asking it. There's something off, something calculated. And here's the truth most people miss. Manipulation doesn't always come dressed as a statement. Sometimes it walks in disguised as a question. Liars know this. They've learned that questions can do what direct lies can't. They can make you doubt yourself, second-guess your instincts, and hand over control without even realizing it. The Stoics understood this dynamic deeply. Marcus Aurelius wrote about the importance of seeing things as they truly are, not as they're presented to us. When someone weaponizes a question, they're not seeking truth, they're creating confusion. Think about it this way. When you make a statement, you own it. You're vulnerable to being challenged, questioned, or proven wrong. But when you ask a question, you shift the burden. You make the other person defend, explain, or justify themselves. That's the genius of psychological manipulation through questions. It puts you on trial without a single accusation being made. Liars exploit this because they understand emotional control better than most. They know that a well-placed question can trigger guilt, shame, or fear faster than any argument. And once you're in that emotional state, your rational mind takes a back seat. You're no longer analyzing what's true. You're scrambling to prove you're not the problem. The Stoics taught that self-awareness is your greatest defense. Epictetus said we should distinguish between what's within our control and what isn't. When someone throws a manipulative question at you, your emotions might spike. That's natural. But your response? That's entirely within your control. Deception thrives in chaos, in moments when they're caught off guard and reacting from a place of fear or confusion. The moment you recognize the question for what it is, tactic, not a genuine inquiry, you take back your power. You stop playing their game and start playing yours. That's what Stoic wisdom teaches. Mental clarity in the face of manipulation tactics. Here's what makes this even more dangerous. These questions don't sound malicious. They sound reasonable, even caring. Why are you being so sensitive? Sounds like concern. You trust me, right? Sounds like reassurance. That's the mask. That's the deception wrapped in familiarity. And if you're not paying attention, if you're not grounded in your own inner strength, you'll miss it. You'll answer the question, fall into the trap, and wonder later why you feel so drained, so confused. The Stoics would tell you this. Don't let someone else's words dictate your reality. Your truth isn't up for negotiation, and neither is your peace. But to protect both, you need to see the game for what it is. And that starts with understanding the first question liars love to ask.
Question 1. Why are you being so sensitive? The guilt reversal trap.
Let's start with one of the most insidious questions a liar can ask. Why are you being so sensitive? On the surface, it seems harmless, maybe even like feedback. But here's what's really happening. They've just flipped the script. You came in with a legitimate concern, a gut feeling, maybe even evidence of something wrong. And instead of addressing it, they've made you the problem. Suddenly, it's not about what they did. It's about how you reacted. That's gaslighting in action, and it's one of the oldest manipulation tactics in the book. The Stoics would call this a distortion of reality, an attempt to pull you away from rational judgment and into emotional chaos. When someone asks, "Why are you being so sensitive?" what they're really saying is this: your feelings are invalid, your perception is flawed, and you're overreacting. It's a guilt reversal trap designed to make you doubt your own emotional control. And here's the kicker: it works. Most people, when hit with this question, immediately start defending themselves. I'm not being sensitive, I just think. And boom, you've already lost. You're now explaining yourself to someone who never intended to listen. Marcus Aurelius warned against wasting energy on those who argue in bad faith. He said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." The same applies here. Waste no more time defending your truth to someone trying to erase it. This question is especially effective because it targets something we're all a little insecure about, being perceived as weak or irrational. Nobody wants to be called too sensitive. So when the accusation comes, even subtly, we scramble. We try to prove we're reasonable, calm, collected. And in doing so, we abandon the very thing that alerted us in the first place, our instincts. Seneca spoke often about the importance of self-awareness and trusting your inner voice. He believed that wisdom comes from knowing yourself deeply enough that external noise can't shake you. When a liar asks why you're being sensitive, they're betting you don't have that Stoic wisdom yet. They're betting you'll crumble under the weight of their judgment. But here's how you stay unshakable. You don't take the bait. You don't defend your sensitivity because it's not on trial. Instead, you return to the original issue with mental clarity. I'm not discussing my tone. I'm discussing what you said. That's it. No apologies, no backtracking, no letting them shift the focus. The moment you refuse to be distracted, the manipulation tactic loses its power. Liars rely on psychological manipulation to keep you spinning. But when you stand firm, rooted in truth and self-awareness, they've got nothing. And that calm, quiet strength, that's pure Stoic wisdom in action. Now, let's move to the second question, one that's even more disguised.
Question 2. You trust me, right? The loyalty test manipulation.
Now we come to a question that feels warm, almost intimate. You trust me, right? It sounds like reassurance. It sounds like connection. But listen closely. It's not a question. It's a test. And more than that, it's a trap. When someone asks if you trust them, especially in a moment of doubt or tension, they're not seeking an honest answer. They're pressuring you into giving the answer they want. This is emotional control at its finest, a manipulation tactic wrapped in the language of love, friendship, or loyalty. The Stoics would recognize this immediately as an appeal to emotion over reason, a distraction from the facts at hand. Think about when this question usually comes up. It's rarely in moments of peace. It surfaces when you've raised a concern, noticed something inconsistent, or questioned their behavior. You're standing at the edge of truth, about to step into clarity, and suddenly, you trust me, right? That question is a wall. It's designed to make you feel guilty for even thinking critically. Because if you say no or hesitate, you're the bad guy. You're the one breaking the bond, doubting the relationship, being unfair. And if you say yes, well, you've just handed them permission to dismiss everything you were about to say. You've agreed to ignore your instincts in favor of blind faith. Marcus Aurelius would call this a false choice, a manipulation of your rational mind. Here's the deeper layer. This question exploits one of our most fundamental needs, the need to belong, to be trusted, to be seen as loyal. Nobody wants to be the skeptic, the one who doesn't believe. We're wired for connection, and liars know that. They weaponize it. By framing the issue as a question of trust rather than a question of truth, they've shifted the battlefield entirely. Now you're not evaluating their actions. You're evaluating your own loyalty. That's psychological manipulation at master level, and it's why so many people stay silent even when their gut is screaming. Epictetus taught that we must separate what we can control from what we can't. You can't control whether someone is trustworthy, but you can control whether you let their words override your judgment. So how does a Stoic respond? Simple. You reframe. This isn't about trust. This is about clarity. You refuse to let the conversation become about your feelings toward them and keep it anchored in facts, in behavior, in truth. Trust isn't a shield against accountability. It's something earned through consistency and honesty. When someone tries to use your trust as a weapon against your awareness, they've already told you everything you need to know. Real trust doesn't fear questions. Real trust doesn't need to be defended with guilt. The Stoics believed in aligning yourself with reality, not with comfortable illusions. And sometimes, reality means recognizing that the person asking for your trust is the very one you shouldn't give it to. But there's another question even more aggressive than this one.
Question 3. Are you accusing me of something? The defensive deflection.
Here's where things get heated. You've raised a concern calmly, reasonably, maybe even kindly, and before you can finish your thought, they cut you off. Are you accusing me of something? Suddenly, the air changes. The energy shifts. You're no longer having a conversation. You're in a confrontation. And just like that, you're the aggressor. You're the one on the attack. This is defensive deflection at its core, and it's one of the most effective deception tactics liars use. Instead of answering your question, they've made you answer theirs. The Stoics would see this clearly. It's a refusal to engage with truth, because truth threatens their position. Let's break down what's really happening here. When someone throws this question at you, they're doing two things at once. First, they're reframing your concern as an accusation, which makes you sound unreasonable and hostile. Second, they're putting themselves in the victim role, which forces you to either back down or escalate. Most people back down. Most people say, No, I'm not accusing you of anything, and boom, The manipulation tactics worked. You've softened your stance, diluted your message, and they've escaped accountability without addressing a single thing. Seneca wrote extensively about the importance of standing firm in your principles. He believed that a person of inner strength doesn't waver when challenged. They hold their ground with calm and clarity. This question is particularly dangerous because it preys on your desire to be fair, to be kind, to avoid conflict. Nobody wants to be seen as accusatory or confrontational. So when the question comes, it triggers an instinct to soften, to apologize, to reassure them that you're not that kind of person. But here's the truth. Asking for honesty is not an accusation. Seeking clarity is not an attack. Noticing inconsistencies and bringing them to light is not aggression. It's self-awareness. It's mental clarity. It's you refusing to be gaslit into silence. Marcus Aurelius taught that we should never let another person's reaction dictate our pursuit of truth. If they respond with defensiveness, that's their choice. Your responsibility is to remain rational, composed, and committed to reality. So what's the Stoic response? You don't flinch. You don't retreat. You say something like, "I'm not accusing you. I'm asking you to explain." And then you wait. You let the silence do the work. Because here's what most people miss. Defensive deflection only works if you let it derail you. If you stay calm, centered, and focused on the facts, their defensiveness becomes the red flag, not your question. Liars need chaos to thrive. They need you reactive, emotional off balance. But when you embody Stoic wisdom, when you stay rooted in emotional control and truth, their tactics crumble. They can't manipulate what they can't shake. And trust me, there's more they'll try. Let's talk about the fourth question, one that pulls on your heartstrings.
Question 4. Would I ever lie to you? The false intimacy appeal.
This one's a masterpiece of psychological manipulation. Would I ever lie to you? It sounds so personal, so genuine. It's an appeal to your history together, your bond, your shared experiences. And that's exactly why it works. This question doesn't ask you to think. It asks you to feel. It bypasses your rational mind and goes straight for your heart. Liars use this because they understand something crucial. People don't want to believe someone they care about would deceive them. We're wired to trust those close to us, and this question exploits that wiring with surgical precision. The Stoics would call this an emotional trap, a diversion from the path of mental clarity. Let's get real for a second. When someone asks, "Would I ever lie to you?" they're not giving you information. They're performing. They're reminding you of every good moment, every laugh, every time they were there for you. They're stacking up the past like evidence in their favor, hoping you'll forget about the present. And here's the thing. It works on most people. Because we want to believe the best in those we love. We want to think that our judgment was right, that we didn't waste our time or trust on someone unworthy. Seneca understood this deeply. He wrote that one of the hardest lessons in life is learning to see people as they are, not as we wish them to be. That requires self-awareness and the courage to face uncomfortable truths. This question is particularly insidious because it doesn't just deflect, it guilts. It implies that by even asking, by even doubting, you're betraying the relationship. You're the one being unfair. You're the one not living up to the bond you share. And if you're not grounded in Stoic wisdom, if you haven't cultivated that inner strength, you'll fold. You'll say, "No, of course not, I'm sorry." And the lie will continue unchallenged. That's exactly what they're counting on. But Marcus Aurelius taught that truth is not negotiable, and neither is your peace. He believed that a person committed to wisdom must be willing to see clearly, even when it hurts, even when it costs them something they value. So how do you respond with emotional control and clarity? You separate the past from the present. You acknowledge the history without letting it cloud the facts. I don't know. That's why I'm asking. Simple, direct, honest. You're not attacking them, but you're also not giving them a free pass based on sentiment. Real relationships, real trust, can handle questions. They can handle doubt. If someone reacts to your pursuit of truth with manipulation tactics, they've just shown you their priority. And it's not honesty. The Stoics believed in aligning yourself with reality, even when reality is painful. And sometimes, the most painful reality is realizing that someone you trusted isn't who you thought they were. But there's one more question, and it's designed to make you forget everything we've talked about.
Question 5. Can't we just move on? The erasure tactic.
And here it is, the final question, the closer, the one designed to shut everything down. Can't we just move on? It sounds so reasonable, doesn't it? So mature, like they're taking the high road, wanting peace, wanting to heal. But let me tell you what this question really is. It's an erasure tactic. It's an attempt to bury the issue before it's resolved, to skip accountability and jump straight to forgiveness. This is manipulation tactics at their smoothest, because it disguises control as compromise. And if you're not paying attention, if you're tired of the conflict and just want things to feel normal again, you'll agree. You'll move on. And the lie will remain, unchallenged and unpunished. Here's the reality. Moving on is only healthy when there's been resolution, when there's been honesty, accountability, and a real commitment to change. But when someone asks this question in the middle of the conversation, before you've gotten answers, before your concerns have been addressed, they're not asking you to move forward. They're asking you to forget. They're asking you to sacrifice your need for truth on the altar of their comfort. The Stoics would see this clearly as a violation of rational judgment. Epictetus taught that peace built on lies is no peace at all. Real emotional control comes from facing issues head-on, not sweeping them under the rug in the name of fake harmony. This question also exploits something deep in us, the desire to avoid being difficult. Nobody wants to be the person who holds grudges or won't let things go. So when someone asks if we can move on, there's this immediate internal pressure to say yes, to prove we're reasonable, forgiving, evolved. But here's what the Stoics understood that most people don't. True inner strength isn't about being agreeable. It's about being honest. It's about holding space for your truth, even when others want you to abandon it. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the obstacle is the way. The discomfort you feel in refusing to move on prematurely, that's not a sign you're doing something wrong. That's a sign you're doing something right. You're refusing to participate in your own deception. So what's the Stoic response? You name it for what it is. I'd love to move on, once we've actually addressed what happened. You don't let them rush you. You don't let their discomfort become your responsibility. Because here's the truth. People who are genuinely sorry, who genuinely want to make things right, don't ask you to move on. They do the work to earn your trust back. They sit in the discomfort. They answer the questions. When someone skips all that and just wants you to forget, they're not interested in healing the relationship. They're interested in escaping consequences. And that's something the Stoics would never tolerate. Self-awareness means knowing when to forgive and when to walk away. Mental clarity means seeing the difference. And now, let's bring it all together and talk about how you become unshakable.
The Stoic shield. How to recognize, respond, and remain unshakable.
So now you know the questions. You've seen the masks. You understand the manipulation tactics liars use to twist reality and control your emotions. But knowledge alone isn't enough. The Stoics didn't just teach philosophy. They taught practice. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus. They all believed that wisdom means nothing if it doesn't change how you live. So let's talk about how you take everything we've covered and turn it into a shield, a way of being that makes you immune to deception. This is where Stoic wisdom becomes your greatest weapon, not an aggression, but an unshakable inner strength. First, you have to cultivate self-awareness at a level most people never reach. This means knowing yourself so well that no one can make you doubt your reality. When someone asks, "Why are you being so sensitive?" you know your emotions aren't the problem, their deflection is. When they ask, "You trust me, right?" you know trust isn't blind faith. It's earned through consistency. That kind of mental clarity doesn't happen by accident. It comes from daily practice, from what the Stoics call morning and evening reflection. Every day, you ask yourself, what happened today? How did I respond? Did I let someone else's words shake my foundation? Did I react emotionally or respond rationally? This is how you build emotional control, not by suppressing feelings, but by understanding them so deeply that they inform you without controlling you. Second, you need to master the pause. This is one of the most powerful tools in Stoic wisdom, and one of the hardest to practice. When someone hits you with one of these manipulative questions, your instinct is to react immediately, to defend, explain, or attack. But that's exactly what they want. They want you emotional, off balance, scrambling. The Stoic response: pause, breathe, let the silence sit. Seneca said, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." The same applies to manipulation. When you pause, you give yourself time to see the game for what it is. You step out of the trap before it closes. And more than that, your pause unsettles them. Liars thrive on fast-paced chaos. When you slow things down, when you refuse to be rushed, you take back control. That's inner strength in action. Third, you have to commit to truth over comfort. This is the hardest part, and it's where most people fail, because the truth is uncomfortable. It means acknowledging that someone you trusted might be lying. It means accepting that a relationship you valued might be built on deception. It means choosing mental clarity over false peace. But the Stoics were clear. Comfort built on lies is suffering in disguise. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth." Your job isn't to believe what's easiest, it's to seek what's real. And when you commit to that, when you refuse to ignore red flags for the sake of keeping the peace, you become unshakable. You stop being a target for psychological manipulation because you are no longer willing to trade your truth for someone else's comfort. Finally, you walk away when necessary. This is the ultimate act of Stoic wisdom. Not every battle is worth fighting. Not every liar deserves your energy. Epictetus taught that some things are within our control and some aren't. You can't control whether someone chooses honesty, but you can control whether you stay in their presence. Walking away isn't weakness, it's self-awareness. It's recognizing that your peace, your truth, your emotional control are more valuable than any relationship built on manipulation tactics. And here's the beautiful part. When you're willing to walk away, you stop being desperate. You stop clinging. You stop tolerating disrespect because you're terrified of being alone. You become the kind of person liars can't touch. Not because you're perfect, but because you're grounded. You're clear. You're unshakable. And that kind of inner strength, that's what the Stoics lived for. That's what we're building here, one question at a time.
Your next move, from knowledge to power.
So here we are. You've seen the 5 questions. You know the manipulation tactics. You understand how liars use psychological manipulation to control your emotions, twist your reality, and make you doubt what you know to be true. But here's the question that matters now. What are you going to do with this? Because knowledge without action is just entertainment. And the Stoics didn't build their philosophy to entertain. They built it to transform. Marcus Aurelius didn't write his meditations to sound smart. He wrote them to survive, to stay grounded, to remain unshakable in a world that constantly tried to pull him off center. And that's exactly what you need to do now. Let me be real with you. The next time someone asks you one of these questions, you're going to feel it. You're going to feel that pull, that temptation to fall back into old patterns, to defend yourself, to prove you're not too sensitive, to give trust when it hasn't been earned. That's normal. That's human. But that's also the moment where everything we talked about matters. That's where Stoic wisdom becomes real. That's where self-awareness and emotional control stop being concepts and start being your shield. So I want you to ask yourself right now, when that moment comes, are you going to react the way you always have? Or are you going to pause, breathe, and respond from a place of inner strength and mental clarity? Here's what I know about you. If you made it this far, you're not someone who settles for comfortable lies. You're not someone who's okay with being manipulated, gaslighted, or controlled. You're here because you want truth. You want freedom. You want to walk through this world with your eyes open and your peace intact. And that's exactly what the Stoics would respect. Seneca said, "It is not the man who is too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." Don't crave validation from liars. Don't crave approval from people who weaponize questions. You already have everything you need inside you. You just needed to remember how to access it. And now you do. So here's my challenge to you. Take one of these questions, just one, and commit to recognizing it the next time it comes up in your life. Don't try to master all 5 overnight. Just pick one. Maybe it's, why are you being so sensitive? Maybe it's, can't we just move on? Whichever one hits closest to home, that's your starting point. And when you hear it, when someone tries to use it on you, I want you to stop, pause, and ask yourself, is this a real question, or is this a trap? Is this person seeking truth, or are they seeking control? That pause, that moment of self-awareness, is where your power lives. That's where you become unshakable. And listen, if this video helped you see something you couldn't see before, if it gave you even one tool you can use today, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs it. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because we're just getting started. Every week, we're diving deeper into Stoic wisdom, psychological manipulation, deception, and the strategies you need to protect your mind and your peace in a world that profits from your confusion. This isn't just a channel. This is a community of people who refuse to be played. People who choose mental clarity over chaos, truth over comfort, and inner strength over approval. And we need you here. So let me leave you with this, something Marcus Aurelius wrote that changed my life. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The liars, the manipulators, the people who ask these questions, they only have power if you give it to them. But the moment you recognize the game, the moment you stand firm in your truth and refuse to be shaken, they've got nothing. You become untouchable, not because you're cold or closed off, but because you're awake, you're aware, you're free. And that, my friend, is what it means to live like a Stoic. Now go out there and show the world what unshakable looks like. I'll see you in the next one.